When a hurricane makes landfall, a tornado tears through a community, flooding overwhelms a town, or a wildfire forces thousands to evacuate, restoration contractors often arrive ready to help. But long before that first truck rolls in, an enormous communication network is already hard at work. In this episode of RIA Beyond, we're going to pull back the curtain on how emergency managers, first responders, government agencies, and technology providers coordinate their efforts during large scale disasters, why effective communication is critical to recovery, and what restoration professionals should understand about the decisions being made before they ever reach the job site. And to do this, I'm pleased to welcome to our program Casey Green. Tell us about yourself, what you do in the industry. I believe you're kind of new to this space. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm the vice president of strategic partnerships and accounts at Intrepid Networks. But I got here in a roundabout way from my work in public safety. I've been involved since I was 16 years old in every branch of public safety you can think of. I started in search and rescue, ended up just falling in love with that, and got my paramedic, and then discovered the fire service and discovered law enforcement. It's been almost 30 years. And through that process, just like everyone that does that job, I've been through some things and recognized that we had a systemic problem in communication. And by happenstance, I found this company, Intrepid Networks, who specializes, and their dream and their goal was to solve that problem, that critical communication problem, to help agencies that have disparate resources that can't talk to each other be able to do so in a timely manner that can impact and save lives. And that's what we do here. We specialize in that. And through now learning and growing in this process and what we do, we realize that there are public safety adjacent entities that have the same problems. They have the same challenges of communication in different resources in different areas that they desperately need to get on the same page. And then there's that gap, that canyon between the emergency responders and the commanders on scene that are running the ICS and all these other resources that they or their people might actually need. And so the same solution is potentially the same problem. And it's been a really cool journey to kind of discovering that and helping out in this space.
Well, thank you for those details. So, what you've done in the past really will work well with the restoration industry because they need these same communication abilities, the strategies that you have embraced. In fact, you mentioned you've been through a few things, so that's interesting as well. But let's start here with this question, Casey. Most restoration professionals enter the picture after the initial emergency response is already underway. Can you walk us through what actually happens during those first critical hours after a major disaster and what coordinating all those moving parts, what that looks like? Who's involved with that? Because your specialty is the communication part of this.
Sure. So one word, chaos. It's either chaos or controlled chaos, right? If you haven't stepped foot into a command post, it's very hard to describe the taming of the chaos, the process that happens. And if you haven't stepped foot as a boot on the ground in one of those emergencies, there is not words to articulate the chaos that is like. And so through lessons learned, we always try, we as a first responder community, always try to be better for the next one, to take lessons learned and be prepared. And unfortunately, there's lots of documentation on this. It's really a weird phenomenon. We repeat versions of the same. I don't like to use the word mistakes, because they're not really mistakes, but the same problems keep reoccurring, and they usually involve around communication. So really, on a disaster response, no matter what the disaster is, some things that not everybody might realize is, again, it's flat out chaos. Again, we're trying to achieve organized chaos. We don't always make that. But what a lot of people miss is that it's local, right? It's local. And what I mean by that is the burden, whoever got hit, they own it. It's their ultimate responsibility. And the knowledge and resources and tools that they have or are aware of varies, right? So what will happen is eventually you'll have an incident commander. You have an EOC that spins up, an emergency operations center, and everybody's trying to run on an ICS playbook, the incident command system. I'm assuming that everybody that listens is familiar with that, but if they're not, I would really recommend getting familiar with that, just at least to be on the language. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, I think. But that playbook and the whole game is in that window. And the purpose is, the goal is threefold: keep people alive, stabilize the incident, and then figure out what's actually happening on the ground so that we can continue to go back and recycle that, keep it safe, stabilize the incident. So the hard part is getting a bunch of agencies who've maybe never met or don't normally communicate together on the same page. And when I say that, you asked about the people that respond. On a local incident, even on a small thing, you're going to have law enforcement. You're going to have maybe multiple types of law enforcement: sheriff's departments, city municipalities, constables, state law enforcement, right, coming in to help, variety of state agencies, and you're going to have three-letter feds. You are. None of those groups on a regular basis can or normally do talk to each other. They spend a lot of their time being siloed. Their natural state is to be siloed. And when an emergency, that silo's got to die. You have to be able to communicate. Now, let's add in the other really critical responders: EMS, that may or may not be part of your fire department. It might be private. There are many communities around the world that rely on private ambulance companies to do their transport. So, of course, the fire department, the emergency managers, and then the emergency management is relying on a variety of groups: technology response, IT, right? People that normally do day-to-day white-collar jobs, all of a sudden are getting mobilized into sleeping late hours trying to keep critical infrastructure working. And that they become part of that emergency response system. So that's just a handful. And then when we add in the scale, that gets bigger and bigger, and the communication problem gets worse and worse. It's quite a problem to solve. So after that, at some point in that phase, when we understand what we've got going on and we understand we're triaging the response, that's at some point when the restoration groups show up, right? They may have already been there. They may have been there from the start, but I mean, show up in the mindset of, oh, hey, we might need to consider bringing these folks in or working with these types of folks. And I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but in the scale of priorities, it kind of becomes that way. And we'll touch on some things I think we can do to help with that too. But there is a psychology behind that. So when you show up, it kind of helps to realize that the machine you're plugging into was really just built hours ago. No matter how much you plan, how much you prepare, no matter how good you are at ICS, no matter how many times you've done the incident, they're all different, and they're all chaos.
From your experience, what are some of the biggest communication challenges that occur during large-scale catastrophe events, and how do they impact everyone involved, including those watching our program today, the restoration contractors?
Oh yeah, that one's obvious but impactful, right? So number one forever is interoperability. And I kind of touched on them at the beginning about all the different groups that need to talk to each other, but normally don't. And then all of a sudden now they have to. So not only is it a technology challenge, it's a culture change, right? So different agencies have different radios. None of it talks to each other. And then everybody leans in on voice. So whether it's radio or telephone, the challenge with that is that they're congested channels, one, right? Everybody's needing to talk on the channels that are available for multiple people to access. And then talking is one person at a time. If we all have something critical to say and I'm waiting for my turn to get out, we're all hitting my emergency button, and there's some bad events out there where there's some critical things that people need to say at the same time. It doesn't work. It's like a queue, and it takes so long for critical information to get to everyone that needs to have it. In addition to that, there's relay points. So if I'm in the field and I need EMS to my location, but EMS is running on a different radio system and it has to be relayed through command and dispatch to them, by the time they know what I need and where I'm at, they might have changed. I might need to be in a different location, or worse things have happened. So that voice is really a problem. The queue is what's the problem. And so command also can't see where their people are at. That's a safety problem. Folks can be spread all across a disaster area. And then there's documentation, right? Documentation, who did what, Where did they do it? When did they do it? This is what really should hit hard for your listeners, because when a restoration crew rolls in, they're rolling potentially into an information vacuum. An information vacuum is exacerbated by the communication challenges that we try to solve for at Intrepid, honestly. When they roll in, they're wondering who's in charge, where do I stage, is it safe, am I in a safe area, am I being disruptive, right? Is this the right time? And then what really can torpedo a FEMA reimbursement or insurance claim is bad documentation. So the good news is that the same fix kind of exists for everybody. It's one shared picture on your mobile device that with real records instead of paper in real-time memory.
Thank you, Casey. So there are still significant awareness gaps about the technology available today. For me, I rely on my cell phone, but there's other tools out there. Talk about that. What tools or capabilities do you think emergency managers and restoration professionals should know more about, and how are they changing disaster response?
Yeah, great question. That kind of ties together some of my rambling from earlier. This is a real frustrating part. A lot of the field still runs, like I said, on radios, phone trees, and paper. And while the technology has moved so far past that, it really has. But a lot of agencies and entities are, I don't want to say stuck in their ways, but they're comfortable. They're in their comfort zone. They know it works. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right? That's a saying I hear a lot. But the technology has advanced and advanced and advanced in the meantime. So you can put live shared map on everyone's phone, everyone in the real time. The moment something on that map is updated by one person in the field, that information is updated in near real time for everybody that might need to see it, eliminating that relay delay, right? Huge. You can stand up secured channels so agencies can share without having to tear down their radios. You can swap out paper for digital forms that will timestamp an automation and geofence the location for you. You can attach photos right on the map, files in pictures and documentation and assessments and before and afters, all the big stuff live in real time. The other thing is mobile carriers, right? They're going to be coming in and fielding cell towers on trucks. There are drones that restore coverage. Satellite now is straight to your phone when the towers are down. If you think about what's going on, unfortunately, over in Ukraine and that mess, from a technological standpoint, there are some relations to a disaster. And if you're watching what is happening over there with how satellite internet and connectivity is kind of changing things in a very austere environment, that applies to a disaster. It's amazing. You don't know the waiting, that golden hour where you need to save lives and being able to communicate where you need help is shortening now, right? Because of that type of technology. That's life-saving. But so there's a lot of tech out there that not everyone knows about, and not everyone invests the time or energy into setting it up ahead of time. The entities that control the purse strings for public safety in government, they're extremely reactive instead of proactive sometimes. So sadly, it usually takes an incident or two before they take action to adopt current technologies or be aware of what's going on or changing that system that they're comfortable with. So speaking of being proactive, I think that's one of the bigger gaps when it comes to awareness that entities like your listeners can bridge. The fact that they exist and the awareness that they have tools that might be able to help and coordinate with is sometimes not on the forefront of the mind of the people coordinating these types of responses. So being proactive with those relationships, I think, is a gap of awareness that can be closed. It's not necessarily technology, but maybe using technology to close that gap.
Now, restoration companies focus on drying buildings, bringing things back to pre-loss condition, rebuilding properties, but they're also part of a much larger response ecosystem. What advice would you give contractors about working more effectively alongside emergency management, public agencies, and other response partners during an event?
Really just four quick ones. One, make friends before the storm, right? What I mean by that is get known by your local emergency managers and your responders and commanders and council members, et cetera. Get credentialed early, right? So they know who you are. The disaster is the absolute worst time to introduce yourself. It comes across as predatory. People don't understand that you're truly a resource to help. There's this lack of understanding of what you do. So setting that up ahead of time is so much smoother. It's the same concept for public safety and response. Let's have a plan and the technology in place ahead of time rather than during the incident or afterwards, which we can help with too, but ahead of time is best. So I would also suggest doing things like volunteer for your CERT teams, your local citizen emergency response teams, and your damage assessment teams. Those are made up mostly of all volunteers. And if you can't volunteer for that, you don't have the resources for that, maybe sponsor them. They're kind of the unsung heroes of a response, and doing things like providing shade, providing water, getting access to some meals. Do the big little things that help make a really tough job just a bit nicer. It helps you be known. It helps people become aware of what you do and what you offer. And those people in the field, they're going to be the ones that are going to be asked constantly about available resources and services like those your listeners offer. So 2, learn a little about ICS. If you can talk the language, you gain a little bit of respect and understanding. It removes a little bit of that barrier, that communication barrier. So FEMA has a great resource, the ICS Resource Center online. I suggest they offer several free courses available to anybody. Just learn it, and it'll help you kind of learn not only the language, like staging areas and logistics officers and the who's who, but it will help you give you the language to communicate and not sound like an outsider. 3, get on their shared picture. Don't be the vendor working blind in the corner. Be a partner that's on the map. 4, document everything. Do it clean. This is a no-brainer for all of you. I don't mean to be preaching to the choir here, but timestamp location tag records of your labor, your gear, the before and after photos, your materials. That protects the agency's FEMA money, your invoice, and the homeowner's claim all at once. And tools like Intrepid Response automate that and can bridge those gaps to be able to link with anybody you want to link with and protect that privacy in a very secure environment. There are lots of tools out there, but that's why I do what we do. The crews that become part of the response, not just a truck that shows up, are the ones who get the call back. And tools like Intrepid Response, they can help provide critical capability and coordination. Those are the big 4.
Yeah, I was counting. You got 4. 4 great tips. Thank you, Casey, for that. Now, last point. We know that things are always changing. So, looking ahead, what changes do you believe will have the biggest impact on what we're talking about today? Disaster communications. Looking ahead, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. It's hard. I know it's hard to predict, but what should people look for or think about as you look at this industry?
Man, 2 words come to mind: resilience and convergence. Connectivity that survives the disaster. Satellite straight to the phone. Groups like the FirstNet Authority bringing out deployable gear, within an hour. So towers are down. That doesn't stop the conversation, right? The critical conversation that needs to happen. Radio and broadband, they're merging so that the old app versus radio fight, it's going away. And drones are everywhere. Sometimes they're too many places. So there's software and technology that we're incorporating with through some really great partners that help us know what drones should be there and what drones should not be there to keep that airspace clean. But 3 out of 4 agencies have drones already. And I imagine 4 out of 4 will have them in the next 5 years. They're going to be the default for damage assessment. And then we got to talk about AI. AI is going to take all of that field data and hand you like a claim ready, reimbursement ready package automatically, potentially. There are things in the works to help with the assessment and make that golden hour even shorter. Drones flying around, seeing what the once it's clear and safe to come outside, you combine drones and AI with looking if passage is safe, if power lines are down, if roads are clear, picking out predictive routes for you automatically to get to where you need to go, automatically giving recommendations of triage for where you need to get the emergent resources immediately. And then you can do the same thing for the restoration agency. This neighborhood, this area looks like it needs immediate help. This area needs help, but these are immediate. With in being able to do that instantaneously, I think is going to be a big impact. So, bottom line, everything's kind of collapsing into one shared, connected picture. So, how do you get ready for that? You buy tools that play nice with others. You do it ahead of time, not afterwards. You get disciplined about your documentation now, because that data is the claim. Train your people in ICS and build those relationships before you need them.
Casey, great advice. Yeah, we don't know what the future brings, but we kind of do when you look at what change is happening now. And I loved your addition of AI being a part of this because there's no stopping that train.
Right.
Mhm. Well, appreciate your time here today, and I'll see you maybe at a trade show in the future.
Outstanding. Stay safe, everybody.